Right, this is the beginning of the aspirin lab, and we're going to start out by hydrolyzing methyl salicylate. The methyl salicylate is in that small, could you please grab that small thing, Teresa? There we go. It's got 2.5 mils, around 2.5 mils of methyl salicylate in there. And that's about 2.5 grams because the density of methyl salicylate is about 1.01 grams per mil. You don't have to have exactly 2.5 mils, but you do need to know exactly how much you have. All right, Teresa, go ahead and put some boiling stones in there. And then you can add in the sodium hydroxide. It's 5 moles of sodium hydroxide. And now we're going to add in the methyl salicylate. So just be careful not to, make sure it doesn't roll down the sides, just directly into the flask there. So we don't have any drippage. There we go. Alright, so as you can see, it forms this nice white solid. That's the sodium salt of the methyl salicylate being formed there. And now we're going to hydrolyze it by setting up a reflux. Now we've already got here the setup. Go ahead and stick it in, please, Teresa. So she's putting that in the neck, or clamping it in the neck of the flask there. We've already got a condenser set up here with the water going in the bottom and coming out the top with the tubing. And it's already been greased as well, hasn't it? It's great.
Did you grease it?
So it's been greased, and we're going to go ahead and stick it into the flask. Now, since this is an aqueous solution, we're going to start this on about 10 and then turn it down once it starts boiling. Now, the other thing we're going to do is we're going to turn up the lab jack here and make sure it's all the way in on the mantle. And you can see that Teresa has already turned on the condenser as well. Okay, all the way in. There we go. Alright, so now we're going to wait for that to boil. We'll start timing from when it boils, and that's going to be 20 minutes of boiling, and that will hydrolyze our methyl salicylate. So we're going to start it on 10 and then turn it down to about 4 or 5 once it starts to boil, and start our timing from that point. So you can see here it's starting to boil, and the salt here is starting to dissolve as it hydrolyzes. And what will happen is that salt should completely dissolve. Alright, so we've been heating for 20 minutes now, so what we're going to do is take the heat right away from it. And we'll turn it off. And we're taking that right off. And then we're going to put the ice directly underneath it. Now let's go ahead and make an ice salt bath here. And what Cassidy's done here is she's got a beaker full of salt here, and we've got about 4 times as much ice as we have salt. So she's going to pour it in and mix it all together. It gets very, very cold. Go ahead. Yeah, mix it up, mix it really well. Good. Now we're going to put the solution in that. See, if we make it up with those proportions, we can get the temperature down as low as minus 24 degrees, which will really speed up our cooling process here. So you'll notice they've taken it off the thing here. They're going to put it in the ice. Now you can see that they've left the condenser on just for now. Now, has it stopped boiling? Okay, let's go ahead and take off the condenser now. And you can turn off the condenser as well. So now we're just going to have the flask sitting in the ice. The clamp's still attached to it, and that's okay. And we just got the ice around it. We're going to leave that there for 10 minutes to cool. Right, so our reaction mixture has been sitting in the ice now for about 10 minutes. Go ahead and it's the ice salt bath. Let's go ahead and take that out now. And wipe off the bottom of it. Yeah, that's a good idea. And we're going to pour that into a beaker. Now we can rinse it out with just a little bit of water since it is an aqueous solution. Don't use too much water, just a little bit. Maybe a couple of small rinses. Let's do that. One and then one other. No. One and one and then pour it out. Okay, and one more. Alright, so what we're going to do is go ahead and add 15 mils of 5 molar sulfuric acid. And you can see that we get some nice crystals out of that. Now Jen has about 20 mils there, so she's put about 15 in for now. She's going to stir it up. And then she's going to check it for litmus. And if it turns red, then it's acidic. If it's turned red?
Yes.
Okay. It's good. Alright. Now we're going to set that back in the ice salt bath and let those crystals settle a bit. Probably about 3 or 4 minutes should be fine, and then we can filter it with the book funnel. So we've got our solution here, and we were supposed to let the crystals settle a bit, and we're supposed to decant, but there doesn't seem to be a great deal of liquid in there to decant. But Jen's going to go ahead and do her best anyway. Could you please turn on the thing, Cassidy? Thank you. So the reason we want to sort of decant this is that we don't want too much of the crystals on there before the liquid is on there, because what can happen is the crystals can sit on the bottom and then it can cause drainage problems later. But what Jen's doing is fine. I think that'll probably do it. Let's go ahead and just pour the rest in. And then what we can do is we can rinse that with some ice cold water. Now the way we can make ice cold water is simply by putting water with ice itself and then just taking the water away from it. So we don't have to sit there and let it cool for a long time. There we go. Seems to be filtering just fine. Yeah, those look like nice crystals. They seem to be draining alright as well. Now it's not absolutely necessary that these be dry because we're going to put these into water anyway. So go ahead and let's add a little bit more ice water to that. We'll try and get as many of those crystals as we can. Okay, good swirl. And away we go. I think that'll do it, Jen. We could spend all day trying to get the rest of those crystals out, but they're not really going to make that much of a difference. Alright, so we're just going to let this sit for a little bit just to get the majority of the water off it. And in about a minute, we're going to go ahead and recrystallize it. So we've got our recrystallization set up here, and you can see Jen's got her crystals in her Buchner funnel. They're not completely dry, but they don't have to be because we're going to recrystallize them anyway. So what we've done is we've got our 2 Erlenmeyer flasks set up here, and the powder funnel here is so that Jen can more easily get the powder into that Erlenmeyer flask. How much water is in the first Erlenmeyer flask, one on the left?
50.
50 mils, okay. And on the right, how much? 20 mils, okay. And you'll notice that we have a fluted filter paper in the right one and a funnel there so that we can pour this in once we're ready to do the recrystallization step. Okay, it's heating up presently, so Jen is going to go ahead and add the solid. You don't have to wait till it's boiling to add the solid. In fact, it's probably preferable if you don't. So as you can see, it's not very dry, but it doesn't have to be. And she's going to poke all that on through. Try and get as much as she can. Okay, So yes, go ahead and poke that through. Alright. Just try and poke as much as you can in there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to wait for this to boil, and then we're going to see if it dissolves or not. Now if it doesn't dissolve while it's boiling, then we will add a little bit more water, wait for it to boil, and then see if it boils and dissolves. If it doesn't dissolve, then we add more water and we let it boil and see if it dissolves, and we keep on going until it's completely dissolved. So it's boiling now, and you can see that there's still a fair amount of solid left in our salicylic acid solution here. No, it's not too bad. It is boiling. Do you think it's all dissolved, or is it?
No, there's some over here.
There's some there? Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and add a little bit of water to that. And you can see Cassidy's just using a wash bottle here. Could you do that again, please, Cassidy? Just a couple of squirts, that'll do. Now we're going to wait for that to boil again, and we're going to see if whatever needs to dissolve will dissolve. You sure those aren't boiling stones? Or you think we're okay? Yeah, we've got some boiling stones there. It looks like all the crystals are gone though. That's good. Alright. We can go ahead now and filter that. So we've got our flask tongs here. Go ahead, Cassidy, and do the filtration. She's filtering it through the filter paper here into that other flask. Now what's going to happen is we're going to wait for that to filter through. Now one thing you might have to do occasionally, Matt, would you lift up that funnel a little bit, please? Sometimes pressure builds up. There we go. Now you can put it back on. Put it back on. Now has it all gone through? Yeah, there might be some crystals left in the filter paper. That is a source of loss. It can happen. But you'll notice we're using a stemless funnel here as well, and that's to prevent crystals forming in the neck of the funnel. But now we're going to go ahead and take that off, please. Put it on the bench, and you can see Cassidy putting it onto a piece of paper towel there. That's smart. And now we're going to let that sit for a bit and form some crystals, and then we're going to put it in our ice salt bath, and that will cool it down relatively quickly. So we needed to leave this on the bench until we get some crystals, and you can see we do have crystals in the bottom there. They're quite nice crystals. You can see them forming there. So we're going to go ahead and stick that into the ice salt bath and let it cool further. Alright, Cassie, let's go ahead and pull it out. Alright, let's see if enough crystals have formed. So what I'd like you to do, Cassidy, is go ahead and wipe it off with a paper towel. And put your ungloved hand around it and ask yourself the question, in my heart, is it as cold as ice? And if it's as cold as the ice is, then you've left it in there long enough, and you can go ahead and filter it. Right, we're going to go ahead and filter this now, book the funnel. Go ahead and turn that on, please, Jan. And you can see that what Cassidy's doing, she's going to swirl and dump. This time we're not that worried about crystals sticking too much to the surface. They're fairly large crystals, so there should be plenty of room in between them. She's rinsing it out here with a bit of ice cold water. As a general rule, it's good to rinse it with ice cold solvent. Probably would have been better to do 2 small rinses rather than 1 big one, but that's okay. Go ahead. And I don't think we will risk trying to get any more out of there. Otherwise we can end up just destroying more crystals that way, more than we would actually get. So you can see what the crystals look like. They're actually quite nice. We're going to let that sit for a bit, not too long, and then put it onto a watch glass because we're going to use this next week when we turn this into aspirin. So this has been drying for a little bit. It doesn't have to dry too much because we're going to leave it for about a week. We're actually going to put it into a beaker rather than put it on a watch glass because we're going to store it for a week. Alright, that'll do. Alright, let's go ahead and add it. You can see we've got a very small beaker here. The bigger the beaker, the more will stick to it later, so we're just using a fairly small beaker here. And you can see that Cassidy's taking the crystals off that filter paper. Alright, just try and get as much as you can off without scraping too much filter paper along with it. I think that'll about do it. Alright, so now she's just going to poke all that down through the funnel into the beaker. And then that'll be it. We'll let that dry over the week. Now they've weighed the beaker, but there's no point in weighing it now because it probably still is a little bit wet, but after sitting for a week it'll be a lot drier and we'll be able to weigh it then, and then we can turn it into aspirin.